So let's discuss it with LaTosha Brown, co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, and Tim Miller, a contributor to The Bulwark and former communications director for Jeb Bush. He wrote the book, Why We Did It First. I know LaTosha has been very hard at work in Georgia, and I have to give her a shout out. Despite all that work she's been doing, her holiday setup in her house right now is a perfect 10. Tim, you didn't even put your pearls on tonight. You should be ashamed at how I mean, she's like roasting chestnuts on an open fire before and after this segment. Bravo to you, LaTosha. Tim, fail on your part. Let's hope that you win with your content. I want to start with Mitt Romney. It's no surprise there are a few Republicans that are calling out Donald Trump, and Mitt Romney is one of them. Watch this.
Well, President Trump lost again, and I know a lot of people in our party love the president, former president, but he's, if you will, the kiss of death for someone who wants to win a general election.
Okay, kiss of death. One might think, oh my God, like this is like driving a stake through Trump's heart, but it wasn't long ago he was kissing frogs' legs at Le Bernardin 10 blocks from here and kissing Trump's butt. Do you really buy that Mitt Romney is saying we're done with Trump once and for all? Tim?
Yeah, I think that Mitt Romney's done with Trump once and for all, and I admire what he's trying to do here, which is try to nudge the party off of Trump and trying to do it in a way that he thinks might appeal to more people who will come to the side of righteousness where he is, where he came, maybe a little belatedly, but where he came eventually. But, you know, I'm a commentator. I don't have to do any nudging. I can just be honest about what happened in Georgia. And it wasn't just Trump's fault. Trump had a big part in it. He recruited Herschel to run, but Rick Scott at the NRSC and Mitch McConnell cleared the field for Herschel. They could have put up a different candidate. It was obvious Herschel was going to be a train wreck, running into a dumpster fire, running into an orphanage or whatever that was. From spring of 2021, I wrote an article for The Bulwark, I think in March of 2021, that's like, this is going to be a disaster. This guy is awful. And yet they cleared the field for him because they were all scared of Donald Trump. And that's what this comes down to, is can these guys get the courage to now say, not just blame Trump and then, you know, start sidling back up to him, but blame him and say, no, we're going to beat you. We're going to put up candidates that are better than yours, and we're going to show you how big of a loser you are. That's what Republicans need to do. And I'm not seeing any evidence that they're actually doing that. And I think had they done that in Georgia, you know, look at Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger. Had they run a candidate like that for the Senate, they probably would have won.
But LaTosha, they had to drag Trump out of the White House kicking and screaming. Given what we know about this guy, will nudging Trump do anything?
No, you know, I have a slightly different take. While on one hand, I understand that they're frustrated with Trump, the truth of the matter is they've always been frustrated with Trump, but they've also coddled Trump, and they've also empowered Trump. And what done is actually utilize the fact that he had this platform or this base so that they can maintain power. And truly, they've actually hid behind Trump. So in many ways, yes, Trump was a part of this process, but so were they. And it wasn't Trump the only candidate. Trump's candidates weren't the only bad candidates they picked. They've chosen other candidates as well that they've supported that are not good candidates because they have an agenda that has been an agenda which I call the anti-people agenda. It has been a racist agenda. They align themselves with white nationalists. They've aligned themselves with insurrectionists. They have chosen to go that route. And so what I think you're seeing is there has to be a complete realignment of them really thinking about their values, and they're the king of the blame game. But the truth of the matter is this falls squarely in their lap this week.
Well, let's talk about that blame, LaTosha, because Lindsey Graham is saying Herschel Walker lost because he didn't have enough resources behind him. Give me a break. Warnock may have outspent Herschel Walker, but he was wholly unqualified for the job. Are they really going to pretend this was about money?
I mean, they've been dishonest this entire sector. So at the end of the day, I think what we know is this hasn't been, and I think that there is an issue that we need to talk about money in general, that this winds up being the most expensive Senate race in the history of Georgia, that this was the most expensive Senate race in the entire country in 2022, right? And I think we have to really think about Are we going to continue to move forward without true campaign finance reform, where it's going to take $400 million to run for one Senate seat? I think that's a critical issue that we got to think about. But secondly, they certainly can't blame this, that literally what early on in the midterm elections, they had spent 3 times the amount with groups as they had spent as the Democrats. So this wasn't a money game. This is a blame game. The bottom line, they lost because they've made bad choices. They did not represent, I think, the people. They had a bad candidate, and it was a perfect storm.
Herschel Walker is just one of dozens of election deniers that lost in 2022. The GOP is still trying to find a clear message around it. And I want to share what Republican Indiana Senator Mike Braun pointed out today.
Candidate quality does count. And then you could never have anything that's going to resonate generally if there's not a clear plan of what you're for. We are basically for nothing, and we complain about it along the way and then say, well, maybe we'll tell you after we're elected.
Okay, Tim, Mike Braun was saying that, get your act together, Republicans. And look who was standing right behind him, Rick Scott, the Senate GOP campaign chair. Are we really to believe that Mike Braun saying things like this are going to push Rick Scott to get his act together? Look what's happening in the House. Look at the Republicans who are in office, who are rising in power.
Yeah, that's the smartest thing I've heard Mike Braun say in a while. So I do agree with him on that. I don't know if they're actually going to take that advice to heart and act on it. What you're saying in the House is exactly right. Just today in the Bulwark, we had, my colleague Joe Perticone was interviewing House members, and even Dan Newhouse from Washington, who voted to impeach Trump. So even, the most normal Republican in the House said that he thought it made sense to do investigations into whether the DOJ is too politicized, an investigation into Hunter Biden's laptop and Twitter. So this is what these guys are going to do. The writing is on the wall that that's their plan for next year, to do these stupid political investigations that are performative in order to appease the base. It's not clear to me they've learned anything. I think what they want to be able to do is just say, this is Trump's fault, we're going to blame him, but then not actually act any differently this time. And that's an easy out for them to blame Trump because they don't have to take any accountability for themselves. And I think that this was a party-wide problem. That's why they were swept, essentially, in the competitive Senate races.
And let's be clear, not all of them have the guts to actually blame Trump. LaTosha Brown, Tim Miller, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it.